100 and something in the queue. So come on in. As you guys are joining, please tell us where you're graduating from and what state, what school. We had a lot of international students the last time, which was really cool. Um,
I love
and
hearing
then
where everyone's from.
yeah, everyone's like, it's really great to have so many nurses from all over. And with me today is Professor Allison. If you guys don't know, she does webinars with me every single week. We do, NCLEX and nursing school webinars. And she's been a professor and nurse for well over 10 years and travels all over the country doing NCLEX and exit prep. Um, so yeah, welcome, guys. And thanks so much, Allison, for being here. It's great.
Thank you guys. Oh, we've got
Yeah.
Las Vegas, still in the new job search. This is a great time to be on job search, honestly, because it's before a lot of schools graduate. Because I feel like a chunk of the schools will graduate in the spring. So if you are in the job search right now, I think that's a great time.
Oh yeah.
We've got some Ohio.
Fisherville. All right, nice. Bullhead City. That sounds really cool.
Ooh, a lot of
Welcome, guys.
Florida.
All over. Oh
All right,
man, yeah, Ohio, Canada,
we might have our first Sri
Miami.
Lanka. First Sri Lanka.
Oh, Sri Lanka.
Or yeah, did I say that wrong? Did I say it like Siri?
Sri
Like
Lanka. I love
Siri,
that.
Siri.
No way. In Thailand, I love Thailand, by the way. This is so cool,
Turkey.
guys. I love it.
This is incredible.
You know what's funny is I went to a get a health checkup in Turkey last summer, and it was just
Mhm.
amazing. I think there's a lot of international facilities that have amazing hospitals. So
I love that.
yeah. So it doesn't matter where you guys are from. The reality of it is that if you're going to be working in a hospital setting, which most of you guys are, for your first new grad job, we're going to be going over some 8 realities to expect in your first month as a new grad. And I've worked personally in 9 different hospitals throughout my career, and a lot of them are just really just standardized, and a lot of the care and a lot of the way that procedures are handled happen the same way. So, in this webinar, we just want to welcome you guys as new nurses. Maybe you haven't taken the NCLEX yet. Maybe you just passed. So, congratulate yourself. You guys have done it. If you're watching this right now, it means that, you're going to be starting your career soon. So, it's great. Um, so, give yourselves a pat on the back that you made it this far in nursing school. Um, and, I always tell students like there was a time where you guys were taking prerequisites and you wished you were going to be right here. So we can't give you guys enough credit for going through the entire thing. So congratulations.
The number
Um,
of times, especially in nursing school, that I said, I can't wait until I just get a job. I can't wait to actually be a nurse. But then that's kind of the scary part too. It's a new fear, you know?
mhm. Yeah, it's like a new fear unlocked. And I even hear like other nurses that have been seasoned in like a certain department, switching departments, and then there's like always a new fear of the unknown. So that's
Hmm.
why we have developed these career nights for you guys. And also a really cool new platform that we're going to announce. But first, if you guys have just joined us, Professor Allison, I just want to welcome her. She is a nursing professor that has been teaching for over 10 years and been a nurse for over 10 years and, and started in med surge. And she's been helping us out here at Simple Nursing with our webinars. So thanks so much.
Thank you
Okay.
for having me.
Yeah, of course. So one of the biggest things uh that we've been working on for this like literally past year is basically creating a simple nursing that you guys already know, like, and trust, but for now for your career. So if you can imagine, like we've created over 4,000 videos for nursing students to help them throughout their nursing school journey, which you guys have already seen. And then we also have created some amazing courses for your NCLEX. We recently launched the Exit Prep, so it's just like natural progression where it's like, hey, why don't we make a new graduate course? And so that's what we did. We sat down with 3 specialized people, the hiring managers from top hospitals around the country. We're talking Cedar-Sinai, which is huge in Los Angeles, especially New York and other places. And we sat down with their hiring managers and asked them, like, what do you look for? What kind of questions do you ask in your interview? Um, and then we sat down with the actual preceptors that grade you and kind of onboard you into the new job. And we asked them, what kind of tips and tricks would you give new grads, or where do you see them commonly, mess up and fail? And then we also sat down with seasoned nurses like Professor Allison, who started med surg, and we did a deep dive in 30 different topics, all the way from where to choose your career, how to know if their hospital is, good or bad, how to navigate the stress and the balance of life. And we put all of this into an entire platform and just, are going to be launching it next month. So we're really excited for this. It's going to be so cool. Um, and so we're going to drop the link right here in the webinar chat, and you guys can join the waitlist here. If you guys just click that link, and you're going to get an alert once the course has been up. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. Like these 30, 40 videos, what we did is just for new grads. Then we're actually working on now creating like, new interesting case studies for CEUs. Um, and so we're doing like a podcast, murder mystery style. We're also doing certification preps like CCRN, your PALS, your ACLS, even wound care stuff. So it's going to be a great like little marketplace. I call it the Netflix of, CEU, but it's going to be so good for your career. So um, it's just one of our ways of helping you guys out. Because we've already helped you with the nursing school. Why can't we help you with everything else? So, um, cool. Oh yeah, I believe we can add subtitles. Good question,
Ooh.
Khalid there. But I can get back to you on that. So without further ado, but again, real quick, if you guys want to sign up for that wait list with free of charge to sign up, we're going to give you an alert. But we'll drop the link again if you guys just want to sign up and just continue in the loop with your career development. So let's get into it. Okay, so what to expect from this session? So we're going to get real about the challenges of transitioning from nursing school to the real world. Just like Professor Allison was saying, it's the fear of the unknown that really just grips us. And what we're going to do is talk about expert advice on what to look out for your first month on the job, because honestly the first 30 days can be the most nerve-wracking. Especially it's like, now you're the nurse. It's like you can't just call for the nurse like, oh no, even though you do have a preceptor. We're going to
Mhm.
show you exactly what to expect. And then here's a real big one, guys. Listen up to this one. We're going to be answering Q&As, so post your Q&As at any time. I believe there's a Q&A button in the webinar chat.
Or down right down below if
Is
you're
it
in
down below?
Zoom.
Oh, in Zoom. Okay, okay. And then click on that and just post questions. Try not to put in the general chat because that'll be lost in the sauce of the whole feed. So again, let's see here. Let me see if I'm missing anything. So use the chat button for any tech issues, the Q&A button to ask us questions and put that in the queue. Um, And then if you guys are joining from YouTube, submit questions in the comment section on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. And then we're also going to record this webinar and send it out to you guys via email. So don't worry. Don't be scared. Be prepared. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right into the 8 realities of what to expect in your first month as a new grad. And honestly, I really wish I had this going into the nursing career, because it can be downright overwhelming with all the newness, especially being in a huge hospital setting. So number one is one of the favorite topics that nurses love is, expect to do some shopping. So this is pretty simple, right? So clothing like scrubs, we recommend at least 3 to 5 sets. Um, and if your employer has specific colors or style requirements, like my hospital, one of the hospitals I worked at, I believe the RNs had to wear light blue and the techs had to wear like a light green. So watch out for that. Some comfortable, supportive shoes. I know when I worked as a nurse, I used Danskos. Now I use Hoka's. But again, you guys already have been through your clinical rotations and you know how long you're going to be on your feet. So um, just be prepared for that. Compression stockings or socks are really good for reducing like fatigue and swelling, and even moisture wicking under the scrub shirts can help you feel comfortable. Because again, if you're not new or if you're not used to doing 12-hour shifts, and especially if you're starting on night shift, It can be very fatiguing. So if you have any questions, again, drop them in the Q&A. But yeah.
I was
Okay,
gonna
so
say,
in
I see one in the chat, Hokas or on clouds. So I've worn both. I struggle with a lot of plantar fasciitis, especially as a nurse, because I used to work in the fitness industry when I was in grad school, and then worked as a nurse, and I had such problems with my feet, and also then went to running, and so I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to feet. So I will tell you, I've done both Hokas and on clouds. I like them both. I think Hokas are best for like walking things, um, just because of one, I do not care how they look. I will go over comfort over style any day of the week. And the Hokas, it looks like I might have stolen my grandpa's shoes, but do not care if it lets you last a full shift. I do like the Hokas, despite the way they look, they're so light, and they're pretty durable. I also really like the On Clouds. They have some of the ones don't have as much support and padding as the Hokas. So it all depends on like what surface are you working on? Because I know a lot of like long-term care facilities have like a very thin carpeting. And so you might not need as much support. But if you're working in a hospital setting, especially if you are, oh, Brooks Glycerin used to be my go-to. Those are like, especially the inside, and especially the Brooks Glycerin, because those are a pretty penny sometimes. Someone called them like the Mercedes or the Cadillac of shoes, the Brooks Glycerins.
really?
So yeah, and
Wow.
so I would oftentimes keep when I use the Brooks Glycerin. I that was a period before On Clouds and Hokas came out. Those are my go-to. That was before On Clouds and Hokas were even brands. And I would always keep an extra pair of inserts in my locker because even if my Brooks started to give problems, usually I'd notice my feet and my knees. Um,
Mm,
and I would just put a new insert in real quick. And oftentimes it'd help me last the rest of the shift to make like,
uh,
especially make your money last a little longer for shoes. And usually it's like, I would kind of pay attention to my miles. I would roughly know how many miles I walked to shift. Um, I actually think like with inserts, I usually go with Amazon, whatever gets the best reviews. Sometimes it's not even money that's the best reviews. It's
yeah,
honestly
that's true.
what people say works.
Hmm.
Yeah, in Skechers, I've heard a lot of people say replace the insoles and then they'll last longer. Uh, as far as if you need more shock absorption for on clouds, there's one called On Cloud Monster. And again, they look like still, your grandparents' old school shoes because they've got the big insoles and but still very comfy. So I'd say it depends on which on cloud because I've had ones before that are more stylish looking. Usually you sacrifice style for comfort a little
Mm,
bit. So, oh, Superfeet's also a really great brand. And especially lots of times if you go to like a Fleet Feet or a shoe store, they'll watch the way your instep is and they can watch and look at things like that. That can definitely help. And then I want to add about compression socks because I feel very passionate about this. I had a nursing instructor tell me when I was in nursing school, I remember at the time thinking she was very old, and now she was probably only in her 50s, but I was in my 20s. So at the time, that just seemed old. But she said, I've worn compression. At the time, it was pantyhose. She was like, every day of my nursing career, and my legs look fantastic. That day, I went and bought compression at the time pantyhose, and now they have the socks. And I wear them all of the time. Even as a teacher now, if I know that I'm going to teach a 3 hour lecture, if I'm going to wear a pair of scrubs, I'm always wearing the knee highs underneath. They're great for traveling, everything. Honestly, taking care of your bodies while you're taking care of other people is so underrated because we're so harsh on our bodies while especially anyone who's been at tech, LPN for years, this is true. And so preserving your body, that's preserving your money too. Can't work extra shifts if your
mm,
body is physically fatigued. So I think that's so important. And then the other thing is, I also recommend, I learned this the hard way. I recommend carrying a pair of scrubs, putting a pair of scrubs that you don't care about in your locker.
mm.
Because in the event something happens, you get something on your scrubs, feces, vomit. I had a patient once who had lice, and I did not want to wear those, even though they had very bad lice. The pharmacy ran out of knit. And so honestly, we put on the hair nets, things on our shoes and everything, but still I did not even want to get in my car with those scrubs on. So I'd say put a pair of scrubs that you don't care about. Hopefully you never need them. It's kind of like the umbrella rule. If you have an umbrella, it doesn't rain. So
Yeah.
that's always great. And I love all the conversation about shoes. This is incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I love this so much. I love sharing the shoe conversation. So other equipment. So definitely a reliable stethoscope. In my opinion, any stethoscope that I've ever had that was black, as far as the tubing,
Hmm.
walked up and grew legs. At
Really?
some point, it would go missing. I swear by, especially I feel like even you can buy stethoscopes for a little bit cheaper if they're like an off-brand color, or they're like last season's color. So if it's a random color of tubing, it is less likely to go missing. Anytime I've gotten one that was just black tubing standardized, if you accidentally buy the computer and you work at a teaching hospital, residents will think that it's just a stethoscope anyone can grab and walk off with. So again, it will walk off, it will disappear in some way. And so I learned to, whatever color it is, it doesn't matter. Don't be picky. But so make sure you have a reliable stethoscope, that you have a pin light. And I know now lots of times our cell phones work, but it's still not as direct as that pin light when you need it, especially if you're like trying to look down the throat. Your phone light is not as good as a pin light because of that pinpoint. Trauma shears, uh, a badge lanyard, especially. I like sometimes people like around the neck better. Sometimes people like the one that is like can pull away, but it's a clip on. So whatever works for you and based on your whatever unit you work on. I see someone bought a Littman on Facebook for $25. That's actually great value, great price. Love that. The one thing I will say is once I accidentally bought one on Amazon, if the price looks too good to be true, read the fine print. It turns out I only bought the stethoscope head, and that's why it was so cheap. In the photo, it was the whole stethoscope, but it was like very fine print. So be careful when you're buying on Amazon. Make sure you're buying the full stethoscope, not just a replacement part. Also, organization. I'm a huge fan of black pens, but also different colored ink pens. I love to take report in like black, and then anything new that happens, I'll write in a different color. So if someone comes up and says, "Tell me the updates," immediately visually, I can see what's been new since I got report. Or if let's say there's a lot of times that you give report to the same person you got report from. Maybe it's the night shift nurse coming back or reverse the day shift nurse coming back. And they say, "Oh, yeah, I had this patient last night. Just tell me the updates." And sometimes if the shift's been so crazy, it's hard to remember exactly what you started hearing and what's been new. And so, yeah, don't steal my colored pins or else there will be a problem. And so, especially those colored pins or the colored, using different colors will help you to visually quickly see the new things. Additionally, highlighters can be great, small notebooks. I loved having a small notebook that I would put in one of the side pockets of my scrubs, especially when I learned something new. In the first year, you will learn so much. It's felt like every day I was learning so much more new. And even it'd be about like conditions I hadn't seen or something that was different than the way that I was taught in nursing school. And so being able to just put a little quick reference in that notebook, put it in my pocket, so that way I could refer to it later. If I had a patient who was getting, first I worked in ortho, so it was like learning that this patient who got a hip surgery with this particular doctor needed this specific thing, put it in the notebook so I could refer to that later. I love things like that. Also, even a storage clipboard is great. And then things to reference. It's like skills refresher videos on your phone, especially if, say, you're being told that you need to put an NG tube, and the only time that you've ever done it was, once in sim lab when you were a student, and then maybe once with a preceptor helping you. Being able to re-watch that outside of the patient's room where they can't see you and refreshing on that, that's always great. Any cheat sheets, also pocket guides are great. Even if you keep it in your locker, but you can quickly go to your locker and grab that, that's fantastic. Other ones that you know you'll need to reference frequently. Again, we as a profession have pockets in our pants for a reason and multiple pockets, including a square pocket on the side so we can store just those types of things. Pocket hand sanitizer can be great. I feel like even, sometimes the hand sanitizer at hospitals wasn't always one that went well with my skin chemistry and could easily chap my skin. So sometimes other hand sanitizer, just be cautious of smells. There are a lot of patients that can be very sensitive to smells, especially patients with asthma, and it can trigger asthma attacks. So anything that's like has no odor is great, or hospital safe hand lotion, as well as things like reusable water bottles, so you can refill your water bottle, or reusable coffee mugs, anything like that, as well as snacks. And I was a big fan of snacks that were quick energy, easy to eat, and sometimes I could even use the wrapper so I didn't have to put my bare hands. Because they're the last thing you want to do on a shift. If you just got done cleaning a code brown, if you don't know what a code brown is, I'll tell you in the chat. If you got done cleaning code brown, doesn't matter how many times you wash your hands, it is very difficult to physically touch food with your hands and eat. So things that you can either like use a wrapper, Mike, that face, you know.
Just think about
So
it.
anything that you
Yeah.
can kind of use a wrapper or anything like that, especially things that are quick and accessible when you feel like you are low in energy, hungry, but you don't have time to take a full break and you need a dip, 100%. Ooh, food prep on nurses for nurses on social media. I love that. That's
I
fantastic.
do love that. Yeah, especially when you're transitioning to 12-hour shifts. Like these personal care items that Professor Allison was talking about. Oh my gosh, guys. It's crazy because you're actually at the hospital more than you're at home, especially if you're doing three in a row, because you're driving to and from work or however you commuting or whatever, even walking. But you're at the hospital for like literally 12 and a half hours, and there's only 24 hours in a day. So the amount of time that you're actually at home. So meal prepping is great. Anything that saves you time in between those big long shifts. So love it. Love it. I love all the dialogue here too. Um, and it's funny because like there's like little things that we forget about self-care, and then we just feel ground down by chugging so much caffeine and trying to get everything just to, get our body started. So number two is just expect a sometimes long and maybe even difficult orientation and training. So we always tell students like what to expect is that go in with big eyes and big ears. God made you with two big eyes and two big ears. Well, they're probably not big, but beautiful. And then one mouth, right? So, use that. Be a sponge. And if you're going into a hospital or a facility that has a lot of veteran nurses that are like, have been there a long time, I always recommend just to, just talk as little as you can and almost act like you're a guest in someone else's house and try to absorb as much as you can. Now, in terms of orientation programs, again, I've worked at 9 different facilities, and all of them varied in different lengths and structures, but all of them were pretty much a little bit standardized. There would always be a certain number of weeks that always follow a certain itinerary, almost like a syllabus. Um, so again, don't be scared, just be prepared. Um, and you may be prepared with a preceptor or experienced nurse to help guide you. And you're always going to have a preceptor, usually in your first, I think, 3 to 6 months, sometimes 10 weeks if you get into a community hospital that doesn't have a lot of resources. So again, try to just learn as much as you can. I still remember one of the hospitals that uh, I was being precepted at. It was in the ER, and I had to advocate for myself because my preceptor was just doing everything. And she wasn't even teaching me or showing me how things worked. It was just like, hey, just watch me. And it was like more than halfway through the entire, preceptorship program.
Mhm.
And I think I only had like 3 or 4 weeks left. And I'm like, I cannot be on my own after this. So again, advocate for yourself because it's your license now. And it's not like you're in clinicals again and it falls on someone else. This is your license. You're the nurse. You got to protect that. And you also got to protect your patient. And then lastly, you're going to learn how the unit's work flows and also the policies and procedures. So just be expected to be a big, huge sponge. So now let's get into things to remember here.
So you won't master everything in orientation, and that's okay. This is the one time that you get to be new. So you get to be new. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say that you're not sure. This is the one time where you get the pass to be allowed to say that. So especially when you don't know, speak up, say something. It's okay. Again, you get to be new. This happens one time. You get to be a new grad one time. And so you get that kind of get out of jail free card. So again, be a sponge, be willing to absorb everything. Preceptors can have different teaching styles. Adaptability is important. I saw it in the chat where someone asked, is it common to be bullied by your preceptor? Absolutely not. I would highly recommend if that is the case, speak up to a manager, speak up to someone else, because I think even we teach in nursing school, one of the most important things of a preceptor is not how long they've been there, not their experience, but how willing they are to teach. That is so important, especially in this day and age. Uh, and so they may have different teaching styles. So sometimes it may be that you may think that they're being too fast or, they're doing this, this, and this, but it's because they want you to kind of acclimate, but it feels like they don't want to teach you. But sometimes ask, be willing to have some conversations with them about, okay, you did this. And can you explain that a little further? And that may help them slow down because they may think that you're absorbing and just not speaking up. So it can be that they don't realize that they're teaching in a way that you're not absorbing the information, but speak up. And adaptability of you is important. And also, a lot of times, if preceptors, if they've precepted a lot, I was a preceptor for new grads and new hires, meaning people who had worked in healthcare or, sorry, worked in nursing. They'd been nurses elsewhere and they were coming to our unit. And I had to be able to adapt to each one. And it was shocking how, even sometimes, if I had a nurse who had been a nurse for a while, it very much still depended on where they were a nurse and what they did. And so I had to adapt to that. And sometimes I'd have new grads that I adapt to. So if your preceptor has been a preceptor before, they can do that. Sometimes it just needs you to speak up. Actually, I had to have one of our new grads, or one of my new grads, they'd been a CNA on our floor for a while. So we had a really great relationship. But she was blazing through orientation, doing an awesome job. But sometimes when we get busy, I would start to do things for her, kind of for us, because I didn't want us to get behind. And she asked me to stop. For example, if we'd paged the doctor, if the doctor called back and she was off doing something, I'd just go and answer the page, handle it, and then move on our way. Because I was kind of thinking us, she'd gotten so strong, I thought of us as like a tag team versus me training her. And so she had to tell me, you know, I've never gotten to talk to a doctor on the phone. I thought, no. And she said, you always do it for me. And that was absolutely never my intention. It's just sometimes when preceptors get busy, we're people too, and we're
Mhm.
trying to get the job done too. And so I said, I promise you the next time I will, even if they page and you're busy, I will wait and go get you and make sure that happens. I forgot. So then the next time that happened, I forgot. So I went and I called the unit from my cell phone and hid in a closet and pretended to be the doctor. And she asked a question I forgot to ask. And then later on, she was like, that doctor had a different voice than what I'd heard before. And I had to fess up to her that it was me faking it because I'd forgotten. So sometimes, assume best intention. Even if your preceptor isn't teaching you the way that you're learning best, talk with them,
Mhm.
because sometimes, again, it's a busy shift and I feel like a lot of units like to treat preceptors and new graduates, new hires, like they're two people, and sometimes give more patience or give because they're like, oh, there's two hands on deck. And that really shouldn't be the case. So speak up. And I love what Pascal said. All work must be done professionally and as a team. And so being collegial. So I think assuming good intent is the best way to move forward first. If you speak up and then it's not handled well or not addressed, or you're met with resistance when you're assuming good intent, then escalate it. Um,
No,
awesome. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in because it's so funny. Like the exact scenario that you mentioned kind of happened to me. I had a preceptor that was new, and I think she only became a preceptor because it was like a pay bump at my hospital, and also because like she wanted on a resume to be like a flight nurse and do like the like
Mhm,
flight stuff. But it wasn't the doctor calling the doctor or anything. It was I never hung blood with her, or I never hung blood in period. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to learn this. And so again, like advocating for yourself, and
mhm,
then also the bullying part. It's not normal in a sense, but it is common. And so
mhm,
my biggest recommendation over the past years is like I've worked in so many hospitals, and a lot of these, veteran nurses, they treat their units, especially if they've been on that floor for like, a few years or a decade, they treat that unit like it's their home. And it's like if
mhm,
you come in and, want to change things in someone's home, they're going to get very aggressive and they're going to put like this, like, mean girls on you. And that's kind of what happened to me a little bit.
mhm,
Um, and it wasn't intentional. It was just that I was, uh, I was, I think this was like, what was it? Maybe like 8 years ago. And this is when the YouTube stuff was taking off, and a lot of students started noticing me. And so that got me in the bad graces of a lot of these veteran nurses, and it got them to, bully me and like, eventually write me up and stuff. So again, try to fly below the radar. It's always best to, bring snacks, bring some cookies, like, $5 cookies or whatever, just throw them in the
Bribery's
break room.
great. Even
Yeah.
even like Dunkin' Donuts doesn't have to be the fanciest donuts. I live in Chicago where it's criminal what they try to charge for donuts sometimes. And it's way too fancy. Any donuts, sweets work really well. But even like if you do travel nursing, a lot of times units will not treat you very well because they know you're getting paid a little extra to be there, working the same hours they are. And so they will also sometimes like, you know, it feels like bullying because they will give you the harder level patients because they know you're getting paid more. So I think flying under the radar is a great thing. And, always try to assume good intent first. And sometimes I just like to think like they're as busy as I am. So if they're short-tempered with me, it's possibly because of that. Uh, and so trying to do that as much as possible. Um, and also another thing that remain teachable, absolutely remain teachable and not a know-it-all is great. Because especially I've heard sometimes, well, if they already know it, then I'm just not gonna tell them anything more. And so rather like trying to come from a place of like, I think this is right. Can you I just want to double check with you because you're the expert. I've used that before and it's softened some old curmudgeon hearts. Like, hey, I wasn't sure, but I know you're the expert. You've been here for, not those exact words, but something of that nature.
Yeah.
Flattery goes, or my mom always said, you win more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Hmm.
And that's not untrue. And that honey can come in the form of true sweets like donuts.
Yeah, and I think it was funny because I think a nursing professor told me that, or maybe it was a paramedic. Either way, it happened a few times where you just drop off whatever it is in the break room, and then so and so will be like, "Hey, there's donuts." Like, "Oh, who brought those?" "Oh, the new guy." And it's like, "Oh, hey, new guy, thanks so much." It's like, "Oh, the new guy's cool now." It's like, okay. And if you do that a few times, it's like, "Oh yeah," you get like a little, you know, reputation. So it's kind of nice. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. So,
and then our
oh,
our last I was gonna say our last point was you
oh,
will
there you go.
likely feel overwhelmed. Everybody does, especially in their first 6 months. Feels like you're a chicken running with your head cut off. Everything's on fire all the time. That is okay. It's part of the process. It helps you learn more than if things came at you in a slow pace, honestly. Almost like they call it like trial by fire. Like, it gets you to sink or float. So it's part of the process. Everyone feels that way, but don't be afraid to ask for help because, again, you get to be new. So if you're truly underwater, ask for help.
That's all we have to do. Let me know if I'm lagging as well, because I got like alerts on Zoom. But okay, cool. Okay, guys, number three is this is huge, right? Expect a huge adjustment period to long shifts. Again, your body is just like a machine, and you're only going to get out what you put in. So again, take care of your body. I had a roommate, especially if you're working on night shifts. I had a roommate who was a new grad when I was a tech, and he started on night shifts, and he was just like his body couldn't adjust. And again, remember, there's going to be an adjustment period, so make time and make grace for that. So let's talk about the challenges here. You may need to build some stamina for long shifts, especially if they're 12-hour shifts, especially if they're night shifts. One of the things that my biggest recommendation is don't overdose yourself on caffeine, because caffeine's only works so well until it just like your body gets desensitized to it, and then you can start causing adrenal fatigue and really taxing, your adrenals, which are supposed to help your body to respond to stress. One of the biggest hacks that helped me was switching over to doing MCT oil and even coconut oil, because your brain's mostly fat. So if you give your brain fat, like these good oils, then you'll be able to go like a 15 or even 16-hour shift, which was my case. So I transitioned from doing like up to 7 cups of coffee a day, and it was crazy. And then being super fatigued because of the crash, and then switching over to, bringing it down to about 2 to 3 cups a day, but then throwing about 3 tablespoons throughout the day, not at one time, but throughout the day, 3 tablespoons of coconut oil made such a huge difference. Um, and there's a few other things. Another one that Allison and I use is something called Keto Aid,
Mhm.
and you guys can get that on Amazon. Um, the only problem is that it kind of spikes your liver enzymes a little bit. There's studies been shown, but other than that, it's really good to get you focused and bam, like the lights turned on. Okay, next one is shifts may not end always on time. You're almost guaranteed to always go over at least by 30 minutes to an hour because you're gonna have to do a shift change report. And some hospitals require you to visit every single patient and do shift change or report in the patient's room. And there could be even emergencies or extra charting. So again, expect long shifts and expect, to pace yourself. So in that first, let's say 30 days of your new grad job, try not to do anything new. Almost act like, you're going to go into like war in a sense, where it's like, okay, I'm going to prepare my meals. I'm going to make sure that I have, my insoles. I'm going to make sure I have enough sleep. I'm not going to overdose myself on caffeine. I'm going to give myself, let's say coconut oil and, just try to prepare your best. Because what I always say is don't be scared, be prepared. And then number three is expect to sometimes work holidays and weekends. And know that your time off may not always be aligned with your friends and family. And you guys already know this from being in nursing school. You had no social life. Now you're going to have one again. But again, you're the lowest man on the totem pole as a new grad in a new facility. So you're going to have to work the most undesirable holidays, which is usually Christmas, New Year's, and then also, some weekends. So, but honestly, everyone always dogs on night shift, but I really like night shift. Night shift was fun for me because all the younger nurses are there, and then it's less busy like after 12 or 1 a.m. And there's no family that's rotating or hospitals or hospitalists like doctors or even other specialties. So it's pretty nice.
Now that you say it, I think anytime I worked night shift, I bonded with the other staff a lot more. And it felt like staff were more willing to help you as well, even if things got chaotic and whatnot. Uh, oh, my volume?
Yeah, I think it might have connected maybe to your earpod, maybe.
Oh, no.
Oh, there you go. Okay, nice. We're
Okay.
back.
We had this issue last week.
Yeah.
There's something jingled loose in my computer, I swear. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, guys. But yeah, I feel like I bonded so much better with anytime I worked night shift with those other night shift nurses than when I worked day shift. Sometimes it's just too chaotic where you don't have time to even realize someone else needs help, you know? So that can be one of the hardest things because you're on your own island, struggling
Mhm.
because there's so many changing dynamics.
It's so true. So now we can get into some perks here.
So some different perks. One, and I loved this. Working 12-hour shifts meant that I had a lot of days a week off. Well, it felt like a lot at the time because oftentimes you have 3 12s, 4 days off. So you'll have more days off compared to someone who has a traditional 9 to 5. So especially if you're someone who wants to pick up extra shifts, at the time, especially when I was working night shift, I, didn't have kids or anyone that I'd take care of but myself, and I wanted to make extra money. So I could easily pick up extra shifts. And because I had 4 days off. And so even I could still allow for I was a big, even though they recommend not to do this, I would do 3 in a row, then have 4 off. So I could pick up, take a day off, do two at another hospital or in the float pool, and then day off and go back. That's a quick way to burn yourself out. I will say that. I was very or much younger at the time. And I just basically turned my blood into coffee or caffeine, which definitely desensitized me to this day to coffee. So Mike is not lying. So it's not something I would recommend. It's possible, but it's nice to have overtime opportunities, especially if there's things where you have bills to pay off, that you racked up during nursing school or whatnot. So it does leave more opportunities for you to pick up some extra shifts. And also, there's pros and cons to working multiple shifts in a row. One is that you could get the same patients over and over again. So it'd be nice even if I was on my third shift where I'm coming back, but it's the same patients I've had for the last 2 days. So I'd come in, to the same nurse I gave report to and say, tell me the updates. And I could easily get right back into the role, which was pretty nice and facilitated better handoffs, consistent care. It was always the worst if I was on my third of three and I got floated. That was the kiss of death, because you're already exhausted, running on fumes, and you get floated to another unit and you were expecting to have the same patients. That only happened a handful of times, but it does allow for, better patient care because again, you're having those same patients, consistent handoff and whatnot.
Cool. There's a lot of activity in the chat I was looking at. Okay. So moving along, guys, we are, let's see, how's it on time? Okay, we're doing pretty good. Number four is, let's see. So I always expect the unexpected. Again, as I mentioned before, perks with with night shift. It's not always bad. I mean, sure, your circadian rhythm gets like really messed up at times. But again, we're going to go through some unexpected perks here. So the challenge, as I mentioned before, right now, the circadian rhythm gets impacted. So your restorative, like REM sleep, that deep, deep sleep, you're going to feel fatigued, and to expect yourself to feel fatigued. One of the ways that you can prepare for it, that I've heard people do in the past, is a few weeks before you start orientation, after you do all the interviews and the whole hiring process, and you're starting on nights, try to keep on staying up later and later and try to transition yourself to prepare your body to stay up for 12-hour shifts, at night. Because again, it can lead to fatigue, like adrenal fatigue, mood changes, even digestive issues as you adjust. So you want to ease into it and prepare your body. Number two is that night shift often has fewer staff members, which could mean more responsibility and less support. But again, every place I work night shift on, um, you usually have really cool, really helpful support staff. Now, obviously, every department's different. I worked in the ER most times, and so we had a lot more staff. You guys might be working in different departments that are less staffed. But again, it's a lot slower paced most times, and there's a lot less going on. So you can absorb more and really transition a lot easier. And then number three, speaking of, less staff, the ancillary staff like lab, radiology, physical therapy, all the other specialties, social workers, they're all coming in um, during the day shift. So you're going to have less availability at night, which is kind of a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that you don't feel overwhelmed by all these new things happening, but the curse
Mhm.
is like less availability. You can't just like pull on the doctor when you need them, or someone. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So some
So what?
perks.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, so higher pay.
yeah.
Especially think you're going to be working those same 3 12s a week. So just getting an extra boost per hour for working a different time of day, especially when I would get anytime that I'd be getting really fatigued or really frustrated, or say if I was going to work and I hadn't gotten great sleep during the day, which would happen a lot, especially during the summer. I swear there was some lawnmower person who knew my sleep schedule. And I would come home, try to go to sleep, and they would start mowing the lawn right outside my bedroom window during the day. And so as they're mowing the lawn, I'm trying to sleep and I would get blackout curtains, everything. And I would have somehow this lawnmower, I don't know, this rickety old lawnmower would make its way over my noise machine. I was trying all the things they recommended. But what I would do is I would sit there and I would calculate, okay, here's how many hours I'm working this week. Here's how many weeks I'm working this month. Multiply that times, I think at the time, I mean, this was 15 years ago. So it was like $2 an hour more just to work again, same hours a week as a day shift person. So I'd calculate $2 times how many hours I was working that month, and I would see how much I was making just by working a different time of day. And so that to me was kind of like bonus money. At first, it was like, okay, that's paying half my rent. In my head, that was like, okay, that's half my rent. Then after a while, when I started having a surplus of money, then I was like, okay, now I can afford to do this because of that, because of just that, only that extra money that I'm getting from working night shift. And sometimes that's really important to see those silver linings. Also, there oftentimes are more overtime opportunities because there's less people in the float pool for night shift. And so if you're willing to do float pool for night shift, then there's more opportunities as well. Also, you're commuting to work during off-peak hours, so that means less traffic, easier parking. Additionally, there was a huge snowstorm. Everyone who worked day shift was having such problems getting to work because they had to get to work before 7 a.m. And by that time, the streets weren't all plowed. Luckily, I didn't have to be at work until 7 p.m. And so by that time, the streets were all plowed. So I really didn't have an issue. So, especially in incremental weather, that was a positive. Easier parking, because also there's left, if you're in a general hospital parking area, there's less family members visiting. They're usually trying to leave by the time you're coming to work, because they'll leave. A lot of hospitals visiting hours end at 4, or people come visit then leave to go have dinner. And and then like I said before, the fewer resources often means stronger team bonding, more autonomy. You get closer to your charge nurse, you get closer to your resource nurses. Also, there's fewer meetings that are happening during the shift. Lots of times when I switched to day shift, there would be a staff meeting that I'm trying to squeeze into, or even an interdisciplinary team meeting. When they're doing interdisciplinary rounds as a day shift nurse, you try to prioritize making it to that to see what's the plan for your patient and to have an input on that. And then also there's fewer administrative tasks that are interrupting your day, less new orders coming in, and even like not having lab there, that means lab orders aren't coming in that you have to then deal with the aftermath of it.
Yeah, just like a whole lot less because
Hmm.
again, working in the hospital, working in departments can be, overwhelming. And again, I just love night shift because it's so much more chill and, it's a lot easier to transition. So the challenges, as we mentioned before, is the circadian rhythm and just feeling tired. But I'm a night owl, and so I think my body adapted. So depends on your body. Okay. Okay, so number five, we have a few more left, guys. We're gonna try to get through these, then we'll go into the Q&As. So again, if you have any specific questions about anything new grad or really anything at all, just drop it into the Q&A button and not into the general chat, and we're going to do the Q&A forum here. So number five is to expect a huge emotional impact. We actually go into a few videos within those 30 to 40 videos in our new grad prep course that we actually talk about this. For example, I still remember doing it with Nurse Lauren because we interviewed a seasoned nurse like Professor Allison, and also, to give you guys a first-person perspective, we also interviewed a new grad who has been a new grad for about 18 months, and she talks about her first code and how she coped with that, and the first death, and how to cope with that, and a lot of these first-time things, which is it's funny because you know Professor Allison and I keep on forgetting my first time doing it because it was like over a decade ago now. So again, some things to expect. You may feel overwhelmed by so much learning and so much expectations. You may feel emotionally exhausted from emotionally charged situations. And so we talk about in this new grad prep course exactly what Nurse Lauren did, that new grad. She has some amazing hacks. Also, you could experience compassion fatigue from prioritizing patients' needs over your own needs. And I see this a lot with nurses who work in long-term facilities, for example, like hospice or like home care. So, because you get attached to your patients and you can overextend and start draining like a lot of your internal resources, pouring into them. Um, and that's what's called compassion fatigue or caregiver fatigue. And then one of the last ones is just experiencing the emotional highs and lows. Again, there's only a few times you're able to be new as a nurse or as a healthcare giver, really. And, so allow yourself to be new. And it's okay to ride this wave. And that's the reason why we made this new grad prep course for you guys. We'll drop the link again, just in case if you guys missed it. With little things like this, which can make huge impacts into your career. Some new grads even have emailed us or DM'd us and been like, I don't even know if I want to be a nurse anymore. How do I do this? So these are all things that are very common, and so we just try to condense it and give you guys almost like emotional support or really just like therapy or almost like mentorship, looking around the corner. And this is the reason why we put a lot of stuff in here that I wish I had as a new grad. So let's talk about how to cope here.
One is that a lot of this emotional impact is normal and expected. Taking it one day at a time, one shift at a time, you can have one shift that completely wipes you out emotionally. And you can be, crying on your way home, venting to a friend, a family member, and then, especially a good night's sleep can help a lot, especially or night or day sleep, depending on whatever shift you work. And but know that like so many people go through this, take it one day at a time, one shift at a time, come back to the next shift and it can be a completely different experience. And it always seems like the world has some timing where it knows when you need that pick me up, and you'll have a patient interaction that will be like, okay, this is why I did this. This is why I came to nursing. Or you'll have some type of experience like, okay, it'll pick you up when you're down. It feels like life is cyclical in that way. Uh, and so, especially prioritizing self-care in your day off. Prioritize sleep is a big one. Nothing can make you feel more emotional, drained, fatigued than not getting good sleep, which is why night shift can be hard. Confide in a friend. It could be someone who works in healthcare, someone who doesn't, a mentor, even a therapist about your feelings, especially if they're getting very overwhelming. Set boundaries. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if needed, don't pick up that extra shift. Know when you need to take time off. Don't always say yes just because, I've heard and I've seen even I've seen where like I follow like different nursing things on Instagram. Well, they'll post where managers can be almost harassing. Not someone in the chat's not me watching this while on night shift. Maybe that's the best time for it. I've seen texts where it's kind of harassing, or it seems harassing, where managers or staffing offices will text you to try to, you know, it's your day of PTO and they're still texting you because they're short staffed, and so set boundaries. You don't always have to say yes. It's not your responsibility to staff the hospital on your day off. So if you need it, take that day off. There is nothing wrong with that, and enjoy your day off. Especially practicing things like mindfulness, relaxation techniques to manage stress. There's so much research that's coming up out about that. And if you don't know how to like meditate, always there's YouTube videos, there's podcasts, there's so much out there now, even free, that can walk you through it. And oh, one even texting on social media, like, hey, I see you're on Instagram or whatnot. Like, I see you're active. Um, Feel free to, ignore it. Take your time. Set those boundaries. That's so, so important. Oh, and I see we have a question from YouTube also. Uh, what tips do we have for a future new grad nurse going into the ED? Oh, Mike, I think that one's for you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can definitely help out with that one. We can touch on that right now for sure. I think one of the biggest things is if you've never worked in the hospital, I would be a tech in the ED. If you're in your third semester now, if you can apply to be a tech in there, oh my gosh, everywhere from like the patient interaction to exactly, how to do vital signs to where everything's located to understanding and observing being around nurses. If you guys are in your third semester or maybe your last semester, I always recommend, trying to be a tech throughout nursing school. I don't recommend it the first year of nursing school because it can be just ruthless, balancing everything. You don't want to start two new things at the same time. But that's my number one recommendation for sure right now. And then obviously, start on night shift. And then as Professor Allison was saying, set boundaries because as a new grad, you're going to be not bullied, but you're going to be kind of like pressured into picking up extra shifts, especially with any short staffing.
Mhm.
Um, and so I still remember that as a new grad, it's like, oh my gosh, I already feel overwhelmed, and you want me to pick up more? Like, sheesh. And then the last thing for the mindfulness thing, I got super into like meditation and mindfulness a few years ago. And I know it's a huge buzzword, but honestly, it can be something as simple as getting out into nature, getting grounded into like, the beach. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I even found that sometimes, to your point, I even find that um, I'm someone that I always like to have like a podcast going, music going. But I would find, especially if I was feeling overstimulated by things like I would notice call lights would start to, if there was a shift where there's a lot of call lights, a lot of new orders happening, I would start to notice when I would get irritated seeing how many new texts I'd have and overwhelmed by even that. And I started to recognize signs of overstimulation. And so one thing that really helped me anytime I was feeling overstimulated, I'd go home, I'd still hear the call lights in my head as I'm trying to sleep. I'd like hear that sound going off as I'm like almost asleep. And so those are signs of overstimulation. So I started doing, I feel like I heard it on a podcast or something, and it was go on walks without music, which at that time I'd never done it. I was very afraid to be left alone with my own thoughts. Like, wait, so I only have the thoughts in my head. This is terrible. This is a bad idea. But especially in the outdoors was really cathartic and uncomfortable at first. Like at first I was like, okay, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. And but honestly, like after a while, like actually, breathing in the fresh air, there's so much reason on like vitamin D, sunlight, and like getting actual outdoor exposure, especially as I was a night shift person for so long. I was very vitamin D deprived. Like my fingernails were peeling off. I had so little vitamin D. Uh, and so that was really helpful. But even feeling comfortable with stillness is very important for then not being so triggered when so much is going on. And I
Yeah, and it's these little things that just go a long way. Um, yeah, grounding definitely is shown to help with emotional wellness and support. So it's just these little things that can make or break you. It's interesting. Okay, number six is to expect to cope with new physical challenges. So remember, it's easy to neglect, like we always talked about, hydration and even nutrition, which again leads to fatigue and poor performance. So again, try your best to, either, meal prep yourself or get a meal prep company to make your meals, because you're going to spend more time in the hospital than you are at home. And that leads to, you being unprepared and then reaching for crappy food. And then getting into that routine can lead to, just whatever you put in your body is what you're going to get out of your body. And then next is standing and walking for long shifts can lead to aches and pains, especially when you're not used to it yet. So, like Professor Allison said, with the insoles, with the shoes, um, and then also even, putting your preparing your body for night shift by staying up later a few weeks before. So let's go over how to cope here. Oh yeah,
Okay,
we talked
so
about a few.
healthy stacks are a big one on your shift, especially again, things that are quick energy. And that can vary. I was a big fan of using, different, I hesitate to call them like energy bars because anything that has calories is technically an energy bar. But like even my go-to now, even as a teacher, let me see if I can find it. I love any of them that are like I love like the perfect bars. Those are great. And so like, and I know I have one of them in here, because I keep them with me almost all the time, especially when I feel low in energy. Oftentimes, like, wait, it's because I haven't had lunch yet. And
Mhm.
I would resort to caffeine, and sometimes it's really you need a little food. I was also a big one. I was never ashamed to steal a pack of graham crackers, just like our patient with hypoglycemia. That's a quick little sugar boost. Because even if you are lulled in sugar, you can get brain fatigue. You can crash and burn really quickly. And sometimes if I knew it was a really crazy shift, I would even keep like any of the things that they have that you can buy at running stores for people running marathons for quick energy. I would keep those, like the little jelly beans, the sport jelly beans. I would have those. They have a little vitamin B in them. So something that's quick, you can pop in your mouth and it's easily digestible. When you need a quick pick me up, of course, have a full nutritious meal. But that's an awesome one. Ooh, okay, keep seeing questions about. We have Q&A coming up. But I keep seeing questions about capstone, and I don't. You might need to give a few more details because we'll come to Q&A in a second. Uh, but I don't know if I fully know what you mean by capstone because I know capstone could be a course, but I don't know about specifically capstone for a clinical. Oh, like the Martin gels, absolutely, those are great. Any of the gels, quick energy. There's like gummies, jelly beans. There's so many different things. Uh, Oh, ATI review course. Review your content. I've worked for ATI as a reviewer, and do NCLEX prep for them. Review your content. feel comfortable in your content, which simple nursing videos are great for helping you with that. So that's my biggest recommendation for that. Um, and we've talked also about the supportive footwear, especially practicing proper lifting techniques, because a nurse with a broken back can't work. If you strain your
Oh my
back,
God.
that limits so much. Or so, especially, and I think so, protecting yourself from injury, even most, I would say 99% of the times before I went and worked a shift, I did some type of physical activity, whether that was going for a walk, going for a run, doing a quick workout in my apartment. Sometimes it was just stretching. And because it can be physically exhausting depending on the unit that you work on. But especially, I worked mainly on med surge and, uh, having your muscles a little bit warmed up, it also helps to perk your brain up and warm your brain up too, and get yourself fully ready for the day. So practicing proper lifting techniques, they love to ask about those in nursing school, like how you should do the appropriate body ergonomics. But it's for a reason, it's also to help you guys protect your back, avoid strain. Because if you injure yourself, it makes work very painful or impossible, like painful at best, impossible at worst. So protect yourself again, care for yourself while you're caring for others. It's easier to say than do, but so important. So again, to go right into incorporate stretching and strength training into your daily routine. So important, even a little bit of anything can help. And now you can even look up on YouTube. There's so many different stretching videos. You can look up stretches for nurses, yoga for nurses. It's really interesting. I've looked up yoga for back pain before. I tweaked my back, pulled it just one certain way, and had some weird back spasm. And I did short videos. I usually like to look at ones that were done by physical therapists. So if it says PT after their name, that's always great because you know that they're giving great recommendations. And that honestly, that helped more than I went and got a massage. That did not help. Uh, I think I tried, pain medicine. That didn't help because it kept coming back. But honestly, just doing that stretching helped a lot. And prioritizing sleep on your days off. It's oftentimes so easy, especially if you work night shift. People are always asking, when can you do this? When can you do that? And you say, here's my day off. If you need to say no, set boundaries, even in your personal life, just to prioritize sleep, because you will be better when you do interact with them. Versus if you force yourself to go and you're so fatigued that you're counting down the hours of when you get to go home. So prioritize sleep, prioritize well-being. That's so important.
And th this is so true, especially for your first 30 days, because you're going to be transitioning, guys. So if you can just write down like a checklist, it would be, obviously prioritize sleep. I would get into a routine of making one of the things I was thinking about for meal prepping is making a smoothie, and then making a meal, and then doing something physically active. And it's all just about maintaining this routine that makes life a whole lot easier. Rather than just going in completely new, completely unprepared. It's almost like just joining a marathon, just to join a marathon. And it's like, oh my gosh. So these are all things that can really help. Okay, guys, number seven, we only have this one and the next one left, and then we're going to open up to Q&As real quick. So number seven, expect time management challenges. We hear time and time again from preceptors that we've interviewed. One of the worst trait, well, not worst traits, one of the biggest traits that new grads can, work on is time management and also prioritization. So the challenges are, especially if you're new to charting and documentation, it can take longer than expected as a new nurse, especially if you're using Epic or what was the other one, Meditech, or another software that the hospital uses that you're not used to. So expect a learning curve with that. It can also be difficult to know how to prioritize patient care tasks first, and you can easily get judged for that from other nurses. So it's okay to be new, and it's okay to ask for help. Um, and guys, don't beat yourself up. You don't have to be perfect. It's always okay to be new. I still remember getting reamed by a nurse for continuing a blood draw as another bed that I had was my patient was coming in with chest pain and thinking they were having a heart attack. When I'm like, I'm gonna finish this blood draw first. And again, I was new. You guys get to be new. Everyone gets to be new. Give yourself some grace. And then number three is you may deal with frequent interruptions, just like I was, right? You're doing a task, you're preparing, let's just say a Foley, you're preparing a NG tube, and then boom, something happens, someone codes, something's going on. So again, prepare to be frequently interrupted and go with the flow. That's the biggest thing, especially in med surg, right, Allison? It's like you think you
Hmm.
have your day figured out, and then one thing happens, and it's like bowling pins. It's like pff, everything gets derailed. It's like, man.
100%.
So let's get into. Okay. Oh, what's up?
Oh yeah, so I was gonna say like especially new orders, nothing can disrupt your day like a new set of orders or completely different orders than what you had your plan as. And we had a question from YouTube touching more on charting at the end of the shift. So one of the best ways to manage your time, and again, this is the more you practice, the better it'll get. Charting in real time as much as possible and trying not to, be perfect when you're doing it, trying to be as accurate as possible. Accurate in real time is going to be the most efficient way. There's so many times where it's like, okay, well, okay, the patient's also trying to talk to me, so I'll just chart this later and I'll write down notes. And later on, I kind of forget what I was like, okay, wait, which exactly was I going to put down this? And so, especially you remember it the most accurately when you do it in real time. So you're not sitting there trying to remember, trying to think things through. So, especially your assessment, charting and documenting in real time. And even if you have to say, if a patient's chatting with you, which I feel like they love to do if you're charting in real time at bedside, say, I'm so sorry, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I get this accurate. That's okay to say. You're there for a job. Yes, you want to be polite and professional to them, and you want them to feel like they're a priority. But if you also need to make sure that you're, uh, not getting distracted, say, give me 1 second. So that way, again, it's kind of setting a quick boundary, and then you can give them your full attention instead of doing both things halfway. So trying to real time as much as possible, that's going to save you so much time where then you're not giving a report and having then to sit and catch up on all this charting that you were supposed to be doing. So as much as you can do in real time, it saves time because also your memory is the best and you doing it right away. You're not having to think back and try to make sure, okay, wait, did I get that down? Did I get that down? Because anytime I've gotten really behind in my charting, then I have to like go through and realize, okay, did I get this? Did I get this? Did I get this? I'm spending more time double and triple checking to make sure I got everything I'd planned to chart later. Also, use the methods those things that you learn in nursing school to prioritize your patient care. That's going to help so much because then you're going to do the things that are most important first. And sometimes some things may end up falling off your list, and that's okay because there's always need to do and nice to do. And so that's going to help you also gain confidence. And then, especially if there's something that's priority and you need help with, other people will prioritize giving you help because they know that it's a big deal.
Mm.
Grouping tasks, especially delegating non-urgent tasks. If there's something that a CNA can do, don't be afraid to delegate that to them. And I remember at first, especially that was so hard because didn't want to seem like it was something I didn't want to do. And like say it's a bed bath. If I'm delegating that to a CNA, it felt like I was asking for a favor. But then what would
Right.
happen is I wouldn't ask, and so I just go and do it myself. And then that was 20 minutes I could have spent catching up on my charting. Instead, I'm spending that 20 minutes after the shift. And just because I was afraid to ask for help. So that can help so much with time management. And also set boundaries when interruptions are not important. All those things they can feel difficult to do, but are so important in order to get better at time management.
That's one of the things we kept on hearing from hiring managers and preceptors, especially even new grads that we interviewed. We interviewed three new grads and to give us their experience as new grads. And one of the hardest things was learning how to ask for, help and also learning how to delegate as well as prioritize. But delegation, you remember, it's just like a skill. Your first time doing a Foley, you probably didn't feel comfortable. Your first time doing IVs, definitely not going to feel comfortable. And it's the same thing with delegation, right? One of the phrases that was used in the new grad course was um, when you get a chance, I know you're busy, but when you get a chance, can you A, B, and C? And then if the CNA or tech didn't do it, just saying it again. Because most CNAs and techs, they've been there for a long time, and they feel sometimes they can walk all over new grads, or that you're the new one, that you don't really know what you're doing. So again, trying to build that rapport with the staff is very important. All right, guys, we're gonna do the last point here, and then we'll get into some Q&As here. So hold on a sec, real quick. Okay, so number 8 is expect some social impacts. So at work, whoops, sorry guys. Hold on. You may find it difficult to find, sorry, you may find it difficult to find your place within the team. And this is why we're saying, as a new grad, you're going to want to, bring cookies, bring snacks for the entire staff and even the unit as a new person. And again, you may encounter intimidating or clicky behavior from coworkers. So that's why you want to have big ears and big eyes and really just be a team player and try not to input your own ideas into, someone else's work. And then number 2 is just be friendly, professional, open to learning, just be a sponge and don't say like, well, at my other facility, this is what we would do. And you guys are wrong because A, B, and C. I had a friend that got a lot of nurses on her bedside doing that. And they ended up trying to follow around and try to write her up for everything. So again, big eyes, big ears, small mouth, and be respectful and just try to help out everyone. Those are the biggest things to get people to like you. Because once people like you, you'll be brought in. And the worst thing from my own experience is to get like these clicks against you. And then that's when you start getting bullied. Because, you don't want to be, bull in a china shop or the odd man out. So that's all it is. Woo.
I love it. Someone said, big eyes, big ears, small mouth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then some other things is, like at the time when my first new grad job, I lived with my sister. She was going to law school and we were completely unaligned in and she was always like, you never get to hang out. Every time I come home, you're sleeping, that kind of thing. We're only a year apart in age. And so that was difficult. Even though we lived together, it felt like our schedules weren't aligning. But then there were times, I would just plan times where I would, okay, this is going to be like our night where we're going to have one-to-one time. So sometimes it's just you may feel isolated, but that's also time when to like bond with your coworkers too. Everybody does that, and sometimes you just have a little more to bond about even in nursing because you're truly in the trenches together. But then sometimes it's like maybe you don't have the same quantity of time. Try to do quality of time, or someone else said relationship might need to adjust with significant others with hours of nursing. Absolutely. And so again, quality is especially important. And and so, try to ramp up communication with your loved ones about your schedule. So that way they don't just think that you're ignoring them, whatnot. I remember my mom would always say, like, I never want to call you because you might be sleeping. And so I'd make sure she knew my schedule. Because sometimes if she didn't call me, I'd forget to call her. And so sometimes even just having those open conversations. So it's like, it's not, sometimes you're on your own, you're just on survival mode and you want to make these connections with people. And so oftentimes like having those conversations and trying to again connect and have quality time, even if it's not quantity, that's so important. Oh, and then we have another question from YouTube. What's a healthy way to handle your coworkers asking like you're asking for too much help? That can feel, especially as a new grad, that's like one of the biggest things. It's like, shoot, I needed help earlier, now I need help again. And what if I took away time that they were supposed to be doing something? Now I'm afraid to do it again. Uh, or if especially if you see coworkers complain about other new grads asking for help and they refuse, okay, especially if a coworker refuses to help a new grad, we're all in the same boat. If one part of the ship sinks, we're all sinking. So definitely like as you're going, if you're looking for new grad jobs, ask about, what's the community like, what's the culture like on the unit? Because that's something that definitely it's like not a great culture. Um, I would say, try to find someone that can be an ally. Whether, make a connection with another new grad, but maybe someone who's not as new as you, or maybe make a connection with your preceptor. Anytime you can get a buddy, someone you can ask for help. There are times, I'm not going to lie, especially if they were, particularly toxic situations, I would align my schedule with someone that I knew would help me out and that I would help them out too. And whenever you can offer yourself up to help other people, people are more willing to help you if you're not just the drain, but you're also trying to help them as well. So that's another good example. I remember once I had a new grad say, "Do you need help with anything?" I was like, "Oh, sweetie." I thought,
That's nice.
I'll be fine. But it was really sweet. You know, when you know someone's struggling, but they still like they're throwing you a life preserver, there's nothing more touching than that. And so
Yeah.
anytime, and I don't mean sweet in like a demeaning way, but it was kind of like
Oh yeah.
when someone's offering you help and you know it's not that they're thriving, it's very, very touching. So sometimes that can be helpful. Make sure that you're also offering help anytime you can. Uh, Someone had asked earlier about going early to your shift to see if look things up. That helped me so much because sometimes once I got report, it felt like it was off to the races. And so the times when I would, if your hospital allows you to log on and look at patients' charts when you're off the clock, I would do it off the clock by choice. Lots of times hospitals won't let you clock in to do that. I would do it by choice for my own sanity. So it was almost like I got bonus time to set my schedule, to get to look at things ahead of time, and to already have a pre-idea about my patients before going to report. I didn't do that as much the more seasoned I got, but definitely at first, as a new grad, I was okay with that being my, time I was giving away for free, essentially, just to get a little bit of an edge and feel less chaotic to start the shift.
Now, I've heard that from other new grads. The worst kind of mentality you can have is like, being. I heard once a new grad say like, "Oh, I'm not getting paid for it, so I'm not going to show up, earlier." But I'm like, guys, like you're only new once, and
Mhm.
you're either going to, sink or swim, and you definitely want to swim. Sometimes you can be floating sometimes, but you definitely want to swim, and it's better to start paddling before you hit the water. So maybe even 15 minutes before your shift, or showing up a little bit early can like ease the anxiety. You don't have to do it all the time, but it can make a huge difference in your first 30 days. And then one of the other questions, or to add on to the question from YouTube about if coworkers are telling you you're asking for too much help, and that other new grads ask for too much help and they refuse. There's always on every unit, there's usually always a mother goose. And so
Mhm.
try to find that mother goose that's like, helpful, a natural teacher, a natural preceptor, and try to go to them for help and or ask them a question. Um, because again, if you just ask, the nurse grouch, and you're going to probably get the same response. And there's a few of those, especially, uh, the longer and more difficult the department is. You're going to definitely see that. But let's take a few more questions here. Uh,
All right, so I see one. This is such a hot topic that we've talked about so often. Is med surg the best field to go in as a new grad? It depends. I feel like this is a major cornerstone of our new grad course.
yeah,
Um,
we went through
we
like 7 departments, right? Like ICU,
right.
med, all the way down to ER, OR. Yeah.
I know,
Peds.
like, it used to be a thing where nursing instructors used to say every new grad should start in med surg, and that's not necessarily true. So we actually looked into why people, when people if they start in med surg but then transfer to other units or other specialties, and why. So I think if you are interested in med surg and you get an opportunity, do it. If you don't know what you're interested in and you get an opportunity, try it. If you are desperate for a job and aren't picky, try it. If you like a fast-paced environment and you want to practice your skills, try it. So I think there's many great reasons to try it. There's many great reasons why people could do something different first. So I think it's kind of like, choose your own adventure of sorts. But great question. Advice for those nervous about starting and forgetting skills, nervous about even simple skills due to being so long since graduating. Definitely videos. I know Mike just filmed a bunch of new lab skills videos, but watching videos, even I know there's some on TikTok and whatnot, but YouTube, especially the simple nursing ones, I love. Oh, let's see. I was trying to see. Make sure in the chat some of the questions get lost. So if you can't put them in the Q&A, because right now we're checking the Q&A, but they get lost in the chat when people respond to anything. So just FYI, if you want us to answer it, try to put it in the Q&A. All right, so there's another one, a new nurse who accepted a job as a clinical research nurse. Um, and would Would you have tips about that position? Ooh, clinical research nurse. So that's so interesting. Um, I I've had a few people I know do clinical research. Definitely, it's a different pace. It's a different dynamic as far as like you're doing a little bit more sitting. It takes a lot of brain work, so definitely like, get good sleep the night before. Um, but I think that's awesome. No specific tips except for definitely like good sleep because your brain is a powerhouse and you're going to be doing a lot of like active thinking during and data collection and whatnot. But other than that, Mike, do you have any specific things about clinical nurse research or
I don't
clinical
really,
researchers?
not really. I don't have friends that went into that. Most of my friends went into nurse practitionership, or CRNAs. I'm trying to think here. I did have a friend that was a PhD researcher, but I don't have the knowledge to touch on it, so I'm sorry. Um, there's probably some YouTube videos out there that can do like a day in the life of a nurse researcher.
Suggestions for nurse starting in oncology. So yeah, there's a lot of meds definitely that aren't covered as well. Again, even like an NCLEX is generalist. I would say like reviewing meds is a great one. Simple Nursing has a great free podcast, the Pharmacology Mastery Series. The ones specific to different chemotherapy meds are really, really important, especially for oncology. Um, Definitely making sure to like brush up on your infection control because a lot of these patients are really, really prone to infection and whatnot. So that's important on so many levels. But that's what I recommend, like definitely brushing up on your chemo, cancer meds and whatnot. But there's going to be a lot of things that you will come across that you've never heard of, meds, cancer conditions, and whatnot, and that's okay. A lot of my students do clinical rotations at one of the big oncology units here in Chicago at Northwestern, so I'm always visiting them. But even the nurses will, my students will say, like, oh, we got a patient with this. And even the nurse had never heard of that or had never had a patient with that. But again, even NCLEX doesn't expect you to know everything, but they expect you to be safe, which is true to life too. You know, when COVID happened, it was in no one's textbooks, but we had to be able to be safe practicing nurses. So, especially knowing like the skeleton or the backbone, which is some of the safety considerations most chemo meds cause issue, bleeding risk, platelets, risk for infection, you know, bad to the bone, all those things. So like knowing the basics is important. A lot of the stuff you'll learn as you're going, and you'll have conditions that will, or new medications that they're coming up with all the time uh, that will occur. So great
You know,
question.
what's funny is like the questions that everyone's asking. Like Margarita is asking about, the ER. Should I begin the ER med surge right away? Um, Christopher's asking, tips about ICU, neuro ICU. And then another person, Ara, asked about psychiatric nurses. And the funniest thing is we actually cover all of these in the new grad prep course, and we actually made a segment and video for each one. But let's touch on the first one here. So, Ara, psychiatric nurses, the number one thing, especially if you're new to the unit, again, I would always recommend being a tech, but safety is number one. It can be a dangerous unit sometimes. I've worked in psych a few times. It could be honestly the funnest unit at times as well. But again, safety is number one, and just being able to have very observant is the biggest thing. Let's see here. What can we talk about with let's see, with ICU, or I think we did talk about this, right? Starting in the ER first or med surg first,
Mhm.
which Margaret asked. Okay, I think we answered that one.
Someone asked about, someone asked directly, Mike, when you first entered the ER as a nurse, what was your experience like? Any tips?
Oh yeah, there's so many tips. The first time so I started ER as a tech. If you want to go into ER and you're not done with nursing school yet, I would try to get a per diem job or even volunteer in the ER. Usually after a year of nursing school, they'll give you like a certification as like, you already have a year of medical practice under your belt. So you're basically a CNA or a tech already. And getting into that is so much more helpful because 90% of the learning curve is taken out. You already know where most of the supplies are. You already know the charting system. You know which nurses are nice, which nurses are not so nice. You know the flow of patients. So that now, if that's not possible, or if you're not able to do that, then I would recommend getting into a good hospital. And we're in the chat talking to Betsy about high turnover rates. So looking at your hospital's turnover rates, and usually higher turnover rates means you have a toxic environment. Or if a hospital has a huge sign-on bonus and they're making you sign papers, giving your life away for this, that's usually a red flag. I mean, you can always look, further into it, but I would look at those very decisively. So looking at that, and then there was something else I was going to say. Um, Darn it, I just lost my train of thought. I was thinking so much about toxic environment. Oh, that was it. Looking for a really good new grad preceptorship or residency program or onboarding program. Usually they're called residency programs. The first hospital I went to was a community hospital, and typically community hospitals, they don't have enough resources. So you kind of get like, really skimped out. And especially starting in somewhere like the ER, that you're doing a lot of critical advanced stuff. You're hanging blood, you're hanging insulin drips, you're shocking people, you're, coding people a lot. So getting in a really good preceptorship program that really trains you and onboards you correctly, rather than what I got with, which was like I think it was like a 8 week or 10 week program. Most residency programs are like 6 months, or it could be 90 days. And so mine was just completely unorganized and not a lot of resources. And I was really actually scared to be a nurse because I'm like, dude, I want to lose my license because of, this really bad onboarding program. So those are, I think, the main stuff to consider. Um, and so that's what I got for the ER stuff. But yeah, I think being a tech, it would put you light years ahead. What do we think about LPNs? I think LPNs and LVNs are great. LPNs and LVNs is literally the first year of a 2-year RN program. But I always recommend LPNs. I'm like, guys, like, just go through that one next year, and you'll double your pay for the entire lifetime of your career. And it'll be amazing. But again, if you feel called to be an LPN and LVN, that's perfectly fine. And caregiving is caregiving, nurses are nurses, and we all do the same, you know, same job basically.
There was another question about working night shift and nutrition and how to eat on night shift. It's very variable. I was always like shocked by people who could eat a full meal on night shift. Sometimes my appetite was really weird. So sometimes I would literally bring soup and whatnot. So I definitely think it's like a personal preference. I do recommend going more protein heavy than carb heavy, as oftentimes carb heavy for a meal, if you don't like snacks. So the specific questions if you don't like snacks, and especially carb heavy can make you more lethargic. There was another question about starting in the surgical PCU. Any post-op surgical care, you'll want to brush up on your post-op skills and the things to watch for post-operatively, like hemorrhaging, pain assessments, specific assessments based on whichever surgery they're getting. Um, Someone else asks, I know we're running short on time right now. Advice on giving handoff report. I'd say watch how other people do it. Watch the experts, see what they do and don't say. Try to stick to SBAR as much as possible. But especially, I think I almost learn the most by watching the experts, listening and paying attention. What do they include? What do they not include? That helped me so much. Mike, did you have any tips for handoff report?
Oh man, our handoff reports were weird, and I kept on getting told that, especially in the ER. Um, but let me try to think, because there's a difference between handoff reports versus like an SBAR report. And it depends, right? There's a huge difference between shift change reports and also, handing off to different units. But my biggest thing is, especially as a new grad and doing it for the first time, I think humans learn best by, observing. And I learned so much from my preceptor by seeing the style of how they delivered information. And so I would always stick to the three, which was HAM, history, allergies, meds. And if you can stick to those three, then you can go into like, the more fancy SBAR reports and then also start adding things on. And I think it's just about learning cadence, just learning from, the most experienced nurse and, emulating what you want to, be like. That's the best advice I can give. Just
There was
reality.
another question about starting in a nursing home. It will be a little slower, but also you get to build a really great relationship with your patients. That's why oftentimes in nursing homes we call them residents, not patients, because they live there. So that's a really wonderful thing. But you'll have a lot of patients, so you do have to be able to like multitask and have a lot of things going on, but they're not as acute. So that's the nice component to it. Um, and we're at time, so I want to answer a few ones really quickly. Someone asked about maximizing clinical experience. Be a sponge. And even if they have a low acuity, ask questions. Try to figure out any learning experience that you can and take the opportunity just to watch and learn as much as possible, even if it's just looking in the charts and trying to see what it is you can learn. Anything you don't know, ask, look it up. That's always great. Uh,
Yeah. So let me time out. We
oh,
can always take
yep.
more questions, but again, if you guys missed it when we were talking about it in the beginning, we were kind of talking about it throughout this entire webinar, but at the sneak peek about what's coming next, we have an entire platform, an entire course for new grads, and we call it the New Grad Mastery course. And we basically made 30 to 40 videos that go into in-depth knowledge of what to expect as a new grad from all three fronts, from what hiring managers expect you to know and how they hire, to preceptors, how, preceptors observe new grads all the time and train them and be like, they give us all their tips and tricks on where new grads really mess up and how to improve that. And then we just do a huge deep dive on all things nurses, from med surg to ICU to pediatrics, and really how to balance work-life balance and everything. So it's an amazing course. Oh yeah, and we also even include a skills refresher inside that course, which is great with videos and cheat sheets. And the last part is that all of it is put together and you actually get CU credits for it. So again, now that you're a nurse, you have to maintain your license, and every 2 years you have to do CUs. So it's a little double whammy there. So we're going to drop the link here. Go ahead and join, and put your info in for that link just to get alerts as we're dropping the course next month. And then also we're going to send you guys a short survey. So please check your email inbox for that in the next few days. That'd be cool. But is there any other questions that we
I think I
have?
just
Or
hammered a bunch of them out.
oh, okay, cool.
And if
And
someone was
yeah,
asking HESI, HESI, any of our exit preps on Simple Nursing are great for helping with HESI. So Simple Nursing.
yeah, we have a med surg HESI, a fundamentals HESI, and also I
Mhm.
believe a pharmacology HESI, or exit prep we call it.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Yes, we are recording it, Jesse, and we're gonna throw it on YouTube. We're also gonna throw it. I believe we're gonna email everyone who attended out a link as well. So thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Woohoo! And again, we're
Thank
doing another
you.
one next month. So if you guys are already on the email list, you should get an alert for that. And it'll tell you guys the topics, date, and time as well. I love this, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't be scared. Be prepared.